Hey, what's up you guys? I know you're probably wondering why I'm in a bikini and how that relates to probably what the video title is, but doing an ice bucket challenge on Friday the 7th of December at the Pole Room Hyatt's Christmas party. They've been kind enough to let me hijack it with my icy goodness. So that's what the bikini's for, and plus clickbait. But as you guys might know, my dad Cliff passed away from motor neurone disease last year. He had a very long battle with it, so I wanted to make a video to have a chat about, I guess, my experience with MND, being the daughter of someone suffering. I know there are obviously a lot of kids who are going through watching their parents suffer from MND or ALS, depending on where you're from. That's not fun. The only thing that's probably less fun is watching your partner or your child go through it. Also equally terrible, and probably more so. So in our little journey with MND, I'm an only child, so it's just me and my mum. My mum and dad were still married. My mum's named Sylvia. Hi mum. And then my dad had a brother and some sisters, and his mum's also still around as well. So I guess we were very lucky to have so many people there to support us, but I guess the point of this video is to talk about it from the unique perspective of a child watching their dad go through MND or their parent go through MND. So dad's journey was actually quite long with MND, quite unusually long. The life expectancy of someone diagnosed is generally very, very minimal, or at least that's what the doctors told us. We know dad had been suffering in his own unique way for at least a year or two before he got diagnosed. He had shortness of breath for a really long time, and we just put it down to him being he was a larger man. He was also an ex-smoker. The guy loved his potato cakes. What can you say? It's going to catch up with you at some point, I guess. But for those of you who don't know, MND, ALS is kind of the thing where they test for all the other possible things that could be the reason why a person is having symptoms, and then when it's none of those things, they say you've got MND. There's really no test for it, and along with that, there's no cure. There are a few treatments that supposedly slow it down a little bit, but by the time my dad was diagnosed, the doctors didn't think it was worth starting it because he was already having muscle weakness and a very hard time breathing because it attacked him in his chest first. There are a couple of different types of MND ALS. We were blessed, I guess, to not have to experience the one where you can get also like a form of dementia with it, which I couldn't even imagine. That's awful. But yeah, so after dad got diagnosed, I think, so he'd already been suffering for a year or two, and then after diagnosis, I'm pretty sure it was about 3-4 years until he passed away. So a really unusually long journey with it. I think most of us put it down to him being very stubborn and him, as some would say, not wanting to leave his girls. Yeah, so dad's MND started in his chest. He started noticing shortness of breath, and we put it down to everything else, but mum, being the switched on woman she is, we'd recently had a family friend pass away from MND, and similar symptoms but slightly different, and mum just had a hunch, and dad ended up being referred to a neurologist after a bunch of other things, and mum said to the neurologist, is it motor neurone disease. Is it? Test for it. Is it? Is there any chance? And the neurologist was like, nah, there's no chance in the world. Apparently I wasn't there, but the day that he came in and told mum and dad had been in hospital for a bit. The day that he came in and told mum and dad, apparently he couldn't even look them in the eye after being so goddamn sure of himself. Couldn't even look my mum and dad in the eye when telling them that. I want to say his name so badly. Just be aware of neurologists in the Monash area of Victoria. Just FYI. If you want more details, message me. So yeah, super fun process getting him diagnosed. I remember my mum calling me and telling me what it was, and I think I process things very oddly. I generally don't break down straight away. Things sink in for me and then I process them over time. I'm not a breakdown kind of person, and my mum and I are different people in that sense. Mum, I think she had time to prepare because she thought that for so long, so she did actually take it pretty well. She rang me and she goes, "We got the diagnosis, it's motor neurone disease." I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, at least it's diagnosed, at least we know now." And mum was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." And quite honestly, like, I wasn't, but I was okay in that moment. And yeah, and I'm quite like my dad. We're just like, okay, this is the way it is, soldier on, let's go. Got things to do. So that's what we did. So dad, he had a lot of trouble with his breathing, and that ultimately was what killed him. But he gradually, he went quite numb in one arm before the other. So it was like, trouble with his digits, his fingers, and then progressively not being able to use his legs. So he went from, he had a walking stick for a bit, and then he had a walker, and then eventually he, MND Victoria and Eastern Palliative Care supplied him with a push wheelchair, and then eventually an electric one, which was fantastic. And big shout out to MND Australia, MND Victoria, especially Eastern Palliative Care, brilliant. And a social worker from Link, City of Monash Link, brilliant. And it makes me so sad now that I've spoken to more and more people who have gone through journeys with MND, whether it was their parent or another family member or a friend or whatever. So many people don't have the resources or don't know that there are resources available that we had. There were so many things that we got on loan from so many different places. Also Bethlehem Care, Calvary Care in Caulfield, just so many resources. I mean, it eventually bled, the appointment stuff bled my parents dry basically, but so many things that we would now retrospectively, life would have been so different without dad's electric wheelchair and electric hoist, because obviously at some point he couldn't get out of bed. We had to hoist him in and out of his wheelchair and for toileting and stuff. I don't know what our life would have been like without it, but the sad reality is now I know so many people don't have those resources, and that horrifies me. So one of the big reasons, aside from fundraising with the Ice Bucket Challenge, is to create awareness, not just for the disease, but also to get the message out to sufferers and families and friends of sufferers that there are resources available. And if anyone has any questions about that, please message me and I will do my best to help put you on to people. Obviously I know the people in my area, but I will help you find people in your area and help you find support, because I do not want anyone to have to go through any of the things that we would have gone through if we didn't have that support. We also had a brilliant, and when I say brilliant, that's not even, I can't even explain how good the social worker, the main social worker we had from Eastern Palliative Care, her name's Sophie. I hope she sees this, because she changed jobs and we haven't had contact with her since. But oh God, she was brilliant in helping us face some really, really hard truths, rather than just waiting for things to happen and dealing with them. Then she introduced ideas to us, and brilliant. Even, and this is probably the loveliest thing ever, she had the idea to have my dad write cards for me and my mum for special occasions, and not even just special occasions, but after, oh, I'm gonna cry again, after Dad passed away, we get this call from Eastern Palliative Care, and our current social worker at the time saying, we have these boxes for you and your mum, can we drop them around sometime? Sophie organised these with your dad. And I remember, like, vaguely, like, Dad asked me to go and buy some cards for special events. Like, I knew, but I didn't know he'd done one for me. But yeah, so he said what he wanted to say in the cards, and Sophie went away and typed them up and stuck them in, because Dad couldn't write anymore. And yeah, and just little things like that. She's just so brilliant. So yeah, Dad obviously eventually lost the ability to feed himself, and we had also been told earlier on that a feeding tube might be a good idea. So there were two options with that. They could put one in the belly, so it's just got like a little tap and it goes into the stomach, and you can hook a drip up to it and feed liquids through it, and also medication, because one of the big things that does go with motor neurone disease sufferers is the ability to chew and swallow. And obviously, if you want to keep your loved one around for longer, they need to obviously have some sort of sustenance, and obviously getting medication in is a really important thing as well. So they said you can do that, or if you don't do that, there's a very high chance that down the track they need a tracheotomy, so a hole in the throat, same thing, because at a certain point the stomach one, they can't do that operation because it's a huge recovery. We had a really terrible experience. Dad reluctantly elected to get the tummy tube. Can I just say, anyone who is considering doing it, or if you have a family member considering doing it, make sure they do not use the balloon stopper. So they have the tube. I've got anything. Let's use my disgusting sock. So let's say this is the feeding tube. And this is, say, where the heel is. This is the stomach. So outside of the feeding tube goes in, and it's just got like a little cap on it. So obviously, you know, things can't go in and out when they're not supposed to. And then there's the stomach. And then on the other end, they can either put a plug, so like a plastic plug that sits up against the wall of the stomach, or they put a balloon, which once they pop the tube in, they inflate the balloon, and that acts as a stopper. I'm sure you can guess where this is going. That balloon popped more than 10 times. So Dad had to keep having, you know, these little mini surgeries, and he wasn't even using the tube. He barely used it in the end. Like, just for him, and every case of MND is different, don't get me wrong, but for something he didn't even really need, to have that much trauma with it, and it was only obviously the last time, and it was years after he got this tube put in, that they were like, oh, there's another option, you know. Nah, we had no idea. No one told us. Ask for the plug, not the balloon, because as MND sufferers, you know, lose more and more muscle tone, they can't sit up straight, so they gradually get more and more hunched, and it's going to pop the balloon, isn't it? You know, with like fat and organs and muscle and stuff, it's going to pop the balloon, and it's going to be a disaster. So ask for the plug stopper, not the balloon. Anyway, so at a certain point, Dad was in a wheelchair. we ended up having carers through, first it was Link, which is a City of Monash initiative, and then through Freemasons, who were fantastic. We had, again, a fantastic caseworker. His name evades me right now, but super, super nice. And they would come in morning and night. While he still could, it wasn't too much effort. Well, it was a lot of effort, but wasn't too much trouble to hoist him into a shower chair and then wheel him into the shower. We had to redo our entire bathroom, which is fine because Mum needed to redo it anyway because it was pretty hectic in there. So the carer would come, help hoist, go into the shower. The carer would shower him, towel him off, get him dressed, and then hoist him into his wheelchair. So at a certain point we had any given morning or night 2 workers to do that, and then my mum would also have to help. So it was hectic. And then also toileting, it's something people don't think about. MND sufferers, for starters, getting often on the toilet, hard if you can't stand up in itself. So I guess there's the option to hoist, but what if your hoist you don't have a 3 meter wide toilet room sort of thing? What if you have a normal in and out, 1 meter, 1.5 meter wide sort of situation? They can't use a normal toilet. So we ended up having, in that shower chair, a bowl underneath that he would go in, or use a pee bottle. And then obviously as they lose function of their hands, they can't wipe for themselves. So there was a time where my mum was doing it for him. And then we started getting carers in. So luckily, for the most part, with his medication, because he was on so much that bound him up, my mum figured out when to give him a laxative so that he would go pretty much on command at night when the carer was going to be there. Obviously, there were times when that didn't work out and Mum would have to clean him up. Now, I'll say for me, that was one thing I said that I would never be able to do for my dad. Not because I didn't care enough or didn't love him enough, but I couldn't see my dad that way. Not to say that when he did, go to the toilet he ended up wearing nappies. Not to say they wouldn't sit with him or be there with him while he was being hoisted and cleaned and things. But I said to him at a certain point, I was like, there's just one thing I don't think I can ever do for you. I can't wipe your ass. It's a line I can't cross. Not because I'm being stupid or trying to be funny or being, a sissy. I can't do that to my dad. Which he was pretty understanding about. He thought I was joking around at first, but then it got to the point where I was like, Dad, I can't. I can't. I will do anything else for you. I will cook for you. I will empty your pee bottle 3 times a day. I will clean up any messes you make, which did happen. Like he'd, drop his pee bottle because obviously it was hard to hold, or he wouldn't, know that he's gone, and we'd have to clean up his chair and him and stuff, and and all props go to my mum for doing a lot of that. Like, yes, we had the carers there, but there were so many instances of, they were 6 hours off, coming at their time, and you can't leave someone to sit in their mess for that long. My mum did a lot, and she did a lot that I'm so proud of her. She did a lot that she didn't think she was going to be able to do. She's a hell of a woman. I love you, Mum. She did a lot. She loved that man. Yeah. And I guess as the disease progressed for my dad, feeding was obviously a big deal because he needed sustenance. And basically, when MND sufferers get diagnosed, their doctors say they generally will get a nutritionist appointment. They get given this book, and this book is basically every food that a nutritionist would tell any normal person not to eat. I'm just gonna grab a tissue. Give me 2 seconds. You know, full fat everything, cheese, cream, ice cream, high carb, high fat, anything, because their body is breaking down, they need to maintain weight and to maintain muscle. So, like you asked it, there was a time where I was cooking him French toast for breakfast every morning. It was brilliant, and for myself, of course. But as time went on, as part of it for Dad, and I don't know how common this is, he lost taste. So getting him to eat things was a huge difficulty. Still, I mean, it would take him an hour to get through the most basic of food, like French toast, and I'd have to reheat it for him a billion times. But, you know, losing his taste was a huge blow, because we then had to figure out not only things that he could, you know, not have to chew too much and not expend too much energy. I mean, you think about eating as, you know, this thing that you just do, and yeah, you enjoy food and stuff, but it's not a task necessarily. But for MND sufferers, particularly in later stages, you know, when like you eat a piece of like beef stir fry meat and it's so chewy and it takes goddamn forever, and you're sitting there and you're like, when's this gonna end? Or you just stop eating it. That's literally everything for MND sufferers. Like, tasteless, chewy, hard to swallow because their saliva glands don't produce as much, or they overproduce. Like as if everything else wasn't bloody enough. You think you could just enjoy food. So yeah, coming up with things that he might want to eat was just a task for my mum, especially because she was the house cook. Luckily, she's a brilliant cook, so yeah, that we were able to keep him eating for quite a lot longer than probably most would. But yeah, so I guess the later stages of my dad's journey with MND, he kept his stubbornness, and I think that really helped him keep his head high for longer than anyone expected. I can only describe it as grace. Despite everything he was going through and the immense suffering, not only, you know, his body and the disease, but watching us having to deal with it too. You know, me, my mum, his siblings, his mum, his friends not coming over because they were too scared. And I get it, death is weird. Death is hard to confront, especially when it's someone you care for, but you know, dealing with being so alone and watching everyone around you feel the same way. He was such a trooper. And so many people, you know, since have, you know, said how even when he could barely lift his arm, give you the thumbs up. Classic Cliff Smart. That's just who he was. That's just who he was. Goodness. A true gentleman, that's for damn sure. That is for damn sure. So yeah, Mum used to help the carers hoist him into his wheelchair in the mornings, about 8 a.m. We'd try and give him breakfast, but didn't often want it, so we'd try with the feeding tube, and he didn't often want that as well, and it took a lot of tries to get that right. The biggest tip my mum could actually give anyone is make sure you get something that makes it go super slow, otherwise you'll find the person will feel quite sick because they get reflux. It gets into their belly too quickly. I can't imagine it tastes very nice. And yeah, he'd just sit there, and because he didn't have a lot of use of his body, he'd get cold, so he was rugged up in his blankets and gloves, even inside, and he'd just sit there. And I guess lucky for us, he didn't lose his ability to talk completely till a couple of days before he died. He had been in and out of hospital a lot with pneumonia, because with losing the ability to breathe, they lose the ability to expel anything. So when we we get pollen in us, we sneeze it out, or germs, we sneeze or cough it out, or that's a pretty integral part. Like when we get a cold, we cough up the phlegm and blow it out and stuff. Or even when we like choke on, inhale icing sugar or pastry or something, we cough it out. They lose the ability to do that. So he was constantly getting stuff caught in his chest. He was in and out of hospital so much. But he had this last really terrible bout with pneumonia. And we thought he was going to die in the hospital. We really did. He looked terrible. And I remember sitting in emergency with him. And I'd never thought going in like, this is it. I'd never been that scared. Like, I just knew that it wasn't his time, but this time I remember sitting in there, and I'd never cried like that in front of him. And I remember holding his hand, and I still remember it. I still remember the feeling in his cold little hands. And we were taking turns, like, giving each other, like, thumb niceies. Because that was our thing. My mum gives crazy, like, tickles, we call them niceies. And Dad would always ask me to do it for him, so I was taking turns. And even though he was so tired and so sick and so in pain, he was doing it to me. And I just remember thinking, this is it. My dad, before he got sick, he was so tall and so tanned and huge. He was huge. Seeing this frail little shell of a man for my dad. Ugh, it's not fair. But he beat it, and at that point he could only get out a few words at a time, and it was a whisper. It was just a whisper. And he came home, and it was so hard to hear him. There were so many times where we had to say to him, I have no idea what you want. I'm so sorry. Take a couple minutes, get your energy back, get your breath back a tiny bit, and we'll try again. But luckily that was really only the last week of his life. And the last time I saw him, I had come to pick up my dogs from my mum and dad had been minding them. My dog at that time. And he was sitting in his chair, all rugged up. And I stupidly was rushing a little bit. And I remember touching him on the hand, I gave him a kiss on the cheek, and I said, I'll see you tomorrow. And I didn't. My dad, he was smart. He died in his sleep, in his bed. in his home like he wanted to. And it's all we could have ever asked for. For him to go peacefully in his sleep, and thank God. But that's what MND does. It just robs you. Robs you of the person you love, everything they were, everything they were gonna be, everything they were meant to do. And now I will never have him walk me down the aisle or share anything. And I don't know what you guys believe, but I guess I do believe in an afterlife, or that they stay close to us. I do. And I have my own personal proof of that. But it's still never enough. And not that I would ever wish him here back if he had to endure another second of suffering from MND. I would never want that in the way the world's going. What's the point anyway? But what I wouldn't give for another second with my dad, with my healthy dad. If you guys ever have any questions, you know, although this is hard and it sucks, if you ever need anything, I got you. For those of you in Melbourne, I would love for you to come to my Ice Bucket Challenge. It's really dark in here. Ice Bucket Challenge on Friday the 7th of December 2018. It's going to be down southeastern suburbs Beachway, probably sometime in the late afternoon / evening after work. Don't have to pour a bucket of ice on yourself, you can pour it on me, thus the bikini. Even if you're just coming to watch and have a laugh, if you want to donate, I'll put the link to a GoFundMe below or side or up, depending on what platform I put this on. All proceeds are going to go to MND Victoria, who again did so much for me and my family. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. If you made it through all of that, thank you so much. Sending you so much love and light and hope for a cure, for treatment, for anything that helps the sufferers and families and friends of motor neurone disease or ALS. Sending you so much.